I get carried away and I do a lot of things off camera. This is the remnants of the wiring loom that was inside the cabin. And just before I took off the door, I was working inside here. That's still the battery cable, comes from the rear. But I've managed to pull that out of these holes all the way. It actually came straight out of there, even though it's got the insulation in it. And there's a bunch of plugs right there. Unplugged those looms I showed earlier. I've also got the antenna taken out. Used to run forward there. And that's all that's left. Power cable. I was just trying to figure out the best way. Should I pull it out the front or pull it out the back? And I wanted to show you something. The battery cable was connected to the solenoid with that stud you should be able to see right in the center. And it dropped straight down. It ran along some holes here, some clamps, and then it runs back up, comes out of the firewall up in here. But what I found, this was all exposed right in front of the radiator. It is completely and utterly perished, and I don't know why that cable would be this bad a shape, but it was a, look at this, that was an accident waiting to happen. So anyways, all these wires are broken, corroded, the insulation's all flaking off. I don't see how it could have gotten this hot right front here. The sun doesn't get to it. So why this cable was so perished, I don't know, but it could have caused a fire at some point. Well, I'm just trying to learn which parts I need to remove before I can remove the body. And this switch and the one on the other side, the air valves, are mounted to the body essentially, and as is that part. And underneath, now that I've looked at it closely, there is a bracket holding the black water tank up to the body. And there's really nothing keeping me from taking this thing down now, so I might do that. That's underneath the footboards in the driver's compartment. And I can get to this body mount now pretty easily. So that's one of the remaining body mounts, one of the two in front that I have to take off. Other things that I need to worry about is the steering, which is up there. The fuel filler, at least, which is right there. And that goes to the tanks, which I'm pretty sure, well, for sure the body, there's a fuel filler up there, and that's part of the body. But then it drops down to here, and I think these tanks stay with the frame. These tanks are 25 gallons each, and they're connected by this pipe right here. It's got a fuel filter. So, and a fuel line going to the generator. That looks like the switch that used to go between tanks. But this common fuel filler goes to both tanks. I have to drain those. There's a drain plug on this one. And over there, drain these tanks. What else? Don't know. Keep looking. Nah. She's stuffed. I can get the other one while I'm working on this one. So far so good. I just hope they don't have 25 gallons in these tanks. I don't think so. It's labeled AUX for auxiliary. So let's move this one at the moment. Forgot which way this stupid cart moves. On the plus side, fuel smells good. Well, smells like it's not bad. So even though it's at least 2 years old, probably closer to 3, it hasn't gone off yet. This doesn't look like it's slowing down. So don't have that much storage here. I couldn't get this plug out. Vice grips kept slipping off. I tried it easy out, and I had one that was too small, another was too big. I tried using a Torx drive, because that kind of fit fairly tight, but it didn't work. Didn't have anything to bite into. So what I did is I ended up drilling a hole. But unusually for me, I opted to be a little bit safe. These are an air drill. There's still a chance that sparks could be off the end of that little drill bit. But I thought that was a minimal chance. So I just drilled it up in there and then held it in place, disconnected the hose and get the bucket underneath it. And yeah, it filled up 1.5. No, filled up about one. Total of 5 gallons was in this one. Maybe 6 gallons was in the other one. So yeah, not too bad. I don't want to leave this open because for sure this part is lower. It's got a sump. And there's still fuel in there, so if I take the tank out, it's going to go all over the place. Happily, one of these self-tapping screws with a little rubber gasket happens to fit just perfectly here. There you go. I can see I'm going to have to get another one of these jack stands because I need another helping hand right here. Take this tank out. It's move it underneath the tank for now. Good enough. It's like it's a carriage bolt sticks through the floor. Yeah, the whole bolt's spinning. Let's try my little saw. Hope that's dry. If it's not, everything's going to come out here. Just in case it ain't, I'm moving everything. Don't want to stand in my face in that thing. Not that heavy. Good stuff. Had a big crack in it right there, so I'm doing a hell of a lot of good. Well, I've taken the bumper off, and it was just bolted on. 8 bolts came off really easy. Pretty heavy though. But this is the shift linkage, and there's a bracket there, and then there's it's like a clamp here. And what I'm going to try to do is just detach the shift linkage there and the bracket and the steering linkage. I might take the headlight out, see if I can get both arms in there. Yeah, these have been held in by a wish and a promise. Spring holding it in there. These rectangular headlights weren't very popular with these models, I guess. A lot of people retrofit the round ones. Huh. What do you know about that? Cool. Got oil in it too. Sheesh. Well, that's definitive. Why is that such a big bolt? It's just a teeny tiny little strap here, held on by a little split pin. Okay, that's disconnected. Take the strap, take that bracket off, let it hang free, and that will be the steering column disconnected. For the last few days I've been just removing wiring, pretty tedious stuff. I've removed some, there was a power converter there and some earthing power cables. There's a great big wiring loom right there that I'm going to have to take out, but that comes out from behind the dash. And technically I don't need to take that out to lift the body off, but it's just easier. Lots of wires hanging down. That's where the battery used to be. Completely removed all the headlights and the flashers. There's some wires coming up from, again, behind the dash. And there was some wiring there for the turn signals and such. I've got some cables hanging out these holes, which are from speedometer cable or something, I'm not sure. A couple of cables run back there behind the motor, as does that pretty big wiring loom right there, goes up underneath. And I think I've gotten most of the wires free, but there's still some cables that I've got to disconnect. So I'm going to go up inside now and see if I can get those out. There's the dash. I don't know how it's held in. I saw a couple of screws up on top. Underneath means probably crawling to get to some screws beneath it. I'll save that for later. This mass of wires here and all that, most of it I don't need to touch, but there's some pretty big wiring looms and a couple of cables that go into this, what I think is the cruise control, and some other various bits that I've got to pull out so I can feed them back and pull them through the dash. I'm not sure what to do with these hoses that go to the back heat exchanger for the hot water system that was in here. They come up through here. They've obviously both attached to the motor, but I don't want to be draining all the fluid out of it because you just want to leave fluid in it. It's really got good fresh coolant in the system. Anyways, so I'm going to try to probably just cut the hoses right in this corner and kind of loop them together somehow. And there's the alternator. That's cut off, and I didn't cut that one. What the heck? Don't know. Try to keep the dirt out of the motor as best I can. Okay, what else is here? All right, let's see if I can get this wiring loom out. Pulled from in front. That'll be a big one out of the way. That's the shift linkage. Lay that on top of the motor. Still brake lines I've got to worry about. Not a lot else. Well, I figured the best way to keep dirt out of the motor, out of the intake, was to put the air cleaner back on. So that's on there. And I need a work surface. I'll put this big lid back on. Can't imagine that was sealing very well. It wasn't held down by anything. Let's see. This usually has something in it to hold it in. Some screws. Let's try that. Panel of some sort here. Fuse box. So I'm looking at the sticker. Recommended tire pressures, front rear, 60 psi for both. This vehicle was parked for about 2.5 years outside, and I never touched a thing. When I figured I'd better, check tire pressure to make sure they're not flat when I pull it in here, they're still holding 60 psi, and the tires look quite good. So, this thing, motorhome, was a wreck in a lot of ways, but mechanically and a lot of stuff like that, they'd kept it up. They'd kept it working all right. Just judging by how fresh the coolant was in here. The motor, when I drove it around, and it drove well. It sounded good, and it started okay. So yeah, they'd done maintenance on it. So I'm happy with that anyway. Ain't holding it in anymore. Okay, it's stuck in there pretty hard. Now, that wasn't as bad as I thought. There was a wire going, a white wire on this smaller harness that I think was going to the radiator, and that was holding it up. Other than that, this fuse box just held in by two big screws. It came right out, and that's the wiring loom. Everything else is inside now. The bezel there are kind of valuable, but it's been drilled with holes that weren't there originally. It's got heat damage, and the radio has been butchered there, so it's got no value. I've gotten everything figured out, but that light switch, I've got that kind of a nut back there undone, but I couldn't get this out. And I'm going, do I have to peel that off? Is there a screw inside? But then I got to looking at the top of the switch here. There's a little catch. You press on this, and that thing comes out. Cool. Right here is you pull down and it moves the the shift lever position. That was pretty productive. Here's the entire wiring harness. And the steering column had a lot of them. There's a couple of switches there on the brake pedal. And I think this little slider switch, somehow they had that linked up to the throttle. And I don't know what that is. This came out, it was pretty much busted up. It's a piece of fiberglass here. You can see that's all fiberglass. And it was not a lot holding it, and it just kind of fell off. Once I had that off, I was able to see down inside where all the wires were coming in and over and across. Yeah, so it's I'm glad that's out of the way. Well, you just missed that. I just used this little cutter to get the pipe, and that's off anyway. So now I'm going to get the brake lines. The risk here, of course, is these are rusted in there. Okay, wish me luck. I'll be danged, it came free. It's not twisting the pipe or nothing. Well, I don't have any plugs to fit in those holes, so they're just going to have to stick a rag in them and just kind of reduce the amount of drips that's going to eventually come out of there. I'm sure as soon as I get something critical underneath, it'll drip. This way I'll keep the mud daubers out. I've got some of the copper tubing I'd pulled out of the back. I just wanted to see if this is going to fit before I start bending it in a couple of U-shapes. I'll put one here between these two hoses to the motor, and that's going to fit stupendously. So good, got clamps and all that. I'll make this into a U-shape, and I'll make a second one to do the ones in back. Well, I keep remembering stuff that I've got to take apart, and the other thing I have to take apart is the air conditioning. And that means I've got to somehow, I don't know about that air conditioning fluid. Is it R14? I don't know which one it is. But one of them is pretty bad for the environment. Probably both of them are. I've got to figure out some way to recycle that. That one doesn't want to go on there. So let's try the other one, because that might be just a big rubber donut. That's the right size. What do you know? That'll come off the bottom. At least that's my hope. Well, this is completely unexpected. Well, I'll be. Who'd have thunk? There you go. Well, first off, this one is rusty looking. Well, I was just kind of goofing around here, and I managed to get one of these bolts out, the first one, on the tie-down mounting there. And it came right out, even though it was rusty as heck. So I am going to forge ahead. I was just going to make up a hole saw and just cut a hole in the plywood and just, say that was good. But if I can get them out this way, all right. Just got to make sure I can get it in here. Okay. Well, no such luck getting these other ones out. They were too rusted in. So what I've done, made myself a pattern, or a thing with a hole cut in it. Using that hole saw, and I've taken the bit out. I'll just use that as a guide. Right here. And screw it in place. Then I'll just drill around it. It's catching on these bolt heads. There we are. It's that rubber cushion that was there. There. There you go. All done. My neighbor is a mechanic, and he was able to help me degas the air conditioning system, because I know it's illegal in all 50 states. So he brought his kid over here. Anyway, so the lines here have been drained. He told me a little bit about the air conditioning system. These particular, I'll get the torch in here. These particular fittings, it's got a cap on it that screws off. This is the big hose, so that's the, I think he said that's the low pressure side. This small hose here is the high pressure side, and they both have caps. But the important thing about these is that what the fittings look like. These fittings have like a quick connect, and that means it has been retrofitted to a 134A kind of Freon. I guess the earlier styles, the R12, were screw-on fittings on the outside. Now these caps screw on, but they screw on to threads on the inside like a Schrader valve. So anyways, now I know more about the system, the 134A. And all I'm going to do is, near as I can tell, I've got these hoses and this dryer, I guess you called it. It's got a little window on top. You can tell, based on what's inside that window, you can tell how the system's working. But these hoses and an earthing strap right behind the front wheel on the passenger side, that is, I think, the only thing holding this motor body onto the frame. Anyway, so we'll start by taking these fittings off, take this off altogether. That disconnects down here. There's another fitting, goes into the condenser, they call it, and looks like a radiator. And that takes this fitting off. And yeah, next step. I think this one here is 5/8. Yeah. And the other one I think is 3/4, at least on this one. Yeah, 3/4. Not very tight. That comes off easy enough. Okay, I think everything's been removed. So I've got a 2x4 here, and I'm going to move these arms out. And I guess as short as I can get, because they're quite long. But I'm going to put this 2x4 here and spread it out underneath the body, which is the side here. And just see how that works. 40-something, 5 years ago, this body was put on this frame. Let's see how it comes off. Fly, be free. Oh God, that scares the heck out of me every time. All right, that worked. Let's take a tour. And there you go. The frame, the body, after 45 plus years. They are in separate pieces. Good old 455 Oldsmobile, entire drivetrain. It's a view you don't see too often of a GMC motorhome. On both sides are these rocker panels. that basically tie the body of the shell together. They're quite robust. Big sheets of big chunks of formed extruded alloy, and they go all the way back. Same with this side over here. Camera kind of gets washed out with the sunlight, but that's what I've got the 2x4s resting on. And yeah, it works quite well to pick those up. They haven't deformed at all. Right, so I've got a rope, or a thing to pull with. Donna's got a thing to push. Let's see what we can do, sweetie. You're not going to bump your head. Are you pushing? I think you're just along for the ride. I can use the tractor to push it back in, so I'm not too worried about what angle it's coming out at. Just leave it straight. What a milestone! High five, sweetie. That's what the frame looks like from the GMC Motorhome. Black water tank used to sit there. Big air suspension bags. I think these fuel tanks have been replaced. They look in really good shape. I'm going to take the hoses out of the middle there and see what they look like on the inside. Big mufflers. That's how the motor ties in to the transmission, I guess. I think it's a chain drive then to the transmission on the other side. If you've enjoyed the series so far, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.